Legacy Award is for lifetime commitment and success in mentorship and in bringing along the next generation. And whenever I'm describing this Legacy Award to folks, I tell them as a means of letting them know how important we think it is, that the first recipient, the first year this was awarded, there were 3 co-winners of this award: Harold Burson, Dan Edelman, and Al Golan. And I was there. It was a wonderful evening. So no pressure, Patrice Tanaka, but you've got a tough act to follow here. I have the distinct privilege of introducing tonight's Legacy Award winner, Patrice Tanaka, the Chief Joy Officer of the Joyful Planet. I'll explain that in a second. Patrice is a serial entrepreneur. She co-founded 3 highly successful award-winning PR and marketing firms and reached the pinnacle of our profession, including an induction in the very prestigious PR Week Hall of Fame, and achieved many other recognitions and awards. But for Patrice, this wasn't enough. She wanted more. And like Betsy Plank before, she had broken through glass ceilings, but she was driven to achieve a higher purpose and to help others achieve their higher purpose. So she left her traditional PR agency perch and founded Joyful Planet, a business and life strategy consultancy that helps people unleash their purpose and achieve success, fulfillment, and of course, joy. Like Betsy, Patrice is a relentless advocate for emerging talent. And like Betsy, she's a big believer in the profound impact of the Girl Scouts in scouting, and a lifelong Girl Scout from the earliest age, as Betsy was. In fact, she's a longtime board member of the Girl Scouts of Greater New York and the recipient of their Women of Distinction and Gold Achievement Awards. So I wanted to kind of give you a sense of how special that commitment is and how special the work she's done there is. So I called their CEO, Meredith Mascara, who was very glad to talk about Patrice, and she described Patrice as, quote, the ideal nonprofit board member, passionately devoted to the cause, always ready to raise her hand and take on the most important challenges, and always focused on the needs of others before herself, especially the girls we serve. Meredith says Patrice mentors countless individual Girl Scouts, and I can attest to that, and to Girl Scout groups, but she's also provided invaluable mentorship to Meredith herself as Meredith expanded her leadership role within the organization. Quote, Patrice gave me tools to bring forth my own personal brand, and they were tools no one had ever offered me before. She can find, this is an important point, she can find the core of someone and help it shine through all the can't do and can't be moments, and to help others to see what they can be, which is what she did for me, unquote. Another of Patrice's mentees, Lori Tucker, who worked with Patrice for 10 years at PT & Company early in her career, and then decided to break away and form her own agency, which Patrice encouraged her to do. She said, quote, 25 years and hundreds of clients later, I still know that I could not have made it 24 hours without Patrice, and I am forever grateful, and so is her godson, Blake. And I should mention, Meredith says that her 5 children have Patrice on speed dial. They think she's part of the family. I then spoke with another mentee who met Patrice in 2018 at an event, if you're aware of the Paladin Awards that were given by the PRSA Foundation. Patrice was being given this award for her work in DEI. And another remarkable emerging leader, Sabrina Brown of BCW, stood in a lengthy line to meet Patrice and asked for a 10-minute mentoring discussion. And Patrice said, okay, well, let's set up an appointment. And Sabrina said, actually, I was thinking now. And so they stepped aside to do this 10-minute thing that turned into 30 minutes. And 5 years later, they've had this most wonderful mentoring relationship. Quote, Patrice changed my life, Sabrina told me. She was everything I imagined, her warmth, her personality, her style, her gusto. And she's like a warm light, like a Christmas tree, because she makes people feel so happy and joyful and warm. And you always feel welcome in her presence. I love my work at BCW, Sabrina said, but But Patrice inspired me to think beyond that and to broaden my horizon in other ways that have really been fulfilling. And with Patrice, you don't feel scared about taking that leap of faith. You don't feel scared, you don't feel intimidated. She always makes you feel safe. And when Patrice began to focus intently on what would give her joy, she realized one of those things was ballroom dancing. And so, typical of Patrice, she went all in on that. She became a longtime board member of an extraordinary group called Dancing Classrooms, which she still serves to this day, and then wrote this terrific book titled Becoming Ginger Rogers. And believe me, it's a terrific book. So I talked to an award-winning dancer named Marisa Hamamoto, who first became aware of Patrice and became friends after reading the Ginger Rogers book. But she described how valuable Patrice's mentoring has been. She said, quote, I go through a lot of self-doubts, feeling I'm not worthy. And I think we can all identify with that at different times. She said, but having Patrice believe in me and willing me to succeed is amazing. She is so open and authentic, I never have to wonder about hidden agendas. She leads by example, inspired me to think, who can I mentor in the way that Patrice mentors me? Which I think all of you mentors would agree. That's what you want your mentees to be thinking. Pay it forward. She said, quote, she's ahead of her time, like Bill Amata. She and Bill are the OGs who have showed us all the way. And I feel very lucky and grateful to have Patrice in my life. She's like my special auntie. So I hope it's apparent from these anecdotes that there's a very consistent theme that runs through a lot of Patrice's relationships. And I can tell you from my own experience and those of many of Patrice's and my mutual friends that it's a constant experience. It's a constant commitment. And when you spend time with Patrice, you always feel like there's nothing else in the world that she'd rather be doing at that moment. And that she not only is looking to tell you about what's wonderful, she's not looking to tell you what's wonderful about her, she's peppering you with questions about your goals and your purpose and what are you thinking about. And it's actually a wonderful experience to come under that level of caring and empathy and friendship. And I was thinking of her the other day because I'm reading a terrific new book by David Brooks, the New York Times columnist, called How to Know a Person. And as I'm reading this, I just keep thinking of Patrice because of a number of ways he describes how to know a person. And one of the things he said was, if you decide to give somebody your attention, it should be with an on-off switch, not a dimmer switch. It should be with an on-off switch, not a dimmer switch. I can gladly attest, Patrice Tanaka has no dimmer switch on her attention. When you are with her, she's 100% present and engaged, and it's inspiring. And in closing, let me just pass along one final thing that I got from Lori Tucker. When I asked Lori to sum up the effect Patrice has had on her career and her life, Lori decided to send me a limerick. I'm going to read it to you now. Thank God for my mentor, Patrice, to whom life is a joyful feast. She lifted me high, said to reach for the sky, asked for nothing returned in the least, to which I and many others would say amen. So friends and colleagues, please join me in a warm salute to our Milestones in Mentoring Legacy Award winner, Patrice Tanaka. Here's the award. We knew you needed that.
Yes. All right. I'm even taller than Pat was. All right. Thank you, Pat, my mentor and my Dear friend, you are a treasure, and everyone knows him, knows that this is true. And thank you to the ThePlankCenter for leadership in PR and to the Board of Advisors for honoring me with your Legacy Award for mentoring. This award for mentoring really warms my heart because mentoring is something that I commit a lot of time doing because I believe it's incumbent upon all of us at every age to pay it forward. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank some of the invaluable mentors in my life and share what I learned from each of them that might be valuable to the emerging leaders in this room. My first and greatest mentor was my mother, the late June Tanaka. She was a warm, loving, and generous woman who commanded her 3 children to share your cookies and toys. And she was militant about this, share your cookies and toys, because she knew that if we didn't, no one would want to play with us. And no one would want to work with us. And she was so right, because this piece of advice has served me everywhere from the playground to the boardroom. So thank you, Mom. You were right, as always. 2 other important mentors growing up were my Girl Scout troop leaders, Mrs. Burrows and Mrs. Matsunaga, who co-shared leading our Troop 45 in Kaneohe, my hometown on the windward side of Oahu. They beautifully role modeled the concept of shared leadership, always supporting one another, never confusing us with conflicting signals as to who was in charge. I began Girl Scouting at 5 years old as a brownie, and being a Girl Scout is my longest affiliation of 60 plus years. And currently I am the longest serving trustee of the Girl Scouts of Greater New York. And I've experienced firsthand what a group of women and men leaders committed to girl leadership development can accomplish, including starting Troop 6000 for our most underserved girls living in homeless shelters. In 2017, we started Troop 6000 in one New York City shelter, and today we are in almost 30 shelters in New York City. Recently, we further expanded Troop 6000 to serve girls and families seeking asylum in New York City. From Girl Scouting, I learned the power of courage, confidence, and character, and what can be achieved when you are committed to making the world a better place. Greg Perry, the late VP of Public Affairs for Alexander and Baldwin in Hawaii, and also considered the Dean of Public Relations in Hawaii, was another invaluable mentor. I was fortunate to have Greg as my mentor in my first ever PR job. I was a journalism graduate of the University of Hawaii and had no clue as to what PR was. I accepted the job as PR director of the Intercontinental Maui based on this ridiculous process. I don't know what PR people do, but I get press releases from these people. I can write those press releases. Yeah, I can do this job. That was what convinced me that I should take this job as PR director. Thankfully, Greg took me under his tutelage and taught me many things. First and foremost, that being a trusted PR person is really about being a trusted human being. So thank you, dear Greg. My former colleague, partner, and dear friend, Frank DeFalco, was another important mentor. Frank was one of the 12 colleagues I led in a management buyback from Chiat Day Advertising in 1990 to start PT & Company as an employee-owned PR agency that was wholly owned by the 13 of us involved in the buyback. Now, the only reason I started PT & Company was because I was faced with having to fire Frank and 2 other colleagues when we lost our biggest client. And to avoid this, I decided to lead a management buyback and spin off our subsidiary and set it up as an independent PR agency. Again, not because I ever dreamt of having my own PR agency. It was just a creative solution to avoid having to terminate 3 dear colleagues. And because of Frank, who was a huge fan of Thomas More, author of the best-selling book, Care of the Soul, we created an agency that was all about soul. We explained this in an ad entitled All About Soul. We said in part, we strive to achieve a seamless integration between personal life and professional life. If we must accept that work sometimes intrudes on our employees' personal lives, then we must also allow their personal lives to intrude on their work. Mark Raper, former CEO of Carter Riley Thomas, who we sold PT and Company to 15 years later to create CRT Tanaka, was another important mentor. Mark was brilliant and kind, and the creator of CRT Tanaka's What Can Be brand promise. Mark was a servant leader, and the beautiful question he posed to us was, what if we could be the agency that delivers fulfillment to employees? That was a huge idea and an important part of CRT Tanaka's What Can Be ethos. My dear friend, Pat Ford, who received this prestigious award 8 years ago, is another treasured mentor. He is a mentor to so many in the PR profession. I first met Pat 10 years ago when I cold called him asking his support for my Girl Scout Council's centennial celebration. Pat didn't even know me, but responded by sending 3 emerging women leaders from Burson Marsteller to our centennial gala. Since then, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Pat and serving as his co-chair of the Diversity Action Alliance. We had lunch last month in New York, and Pat said something that floored me. He said, we in PR and communications need to own DE&I, and added, if we can't make headway on this, I'll feel that my whole expletive deleted career has been a failure. How can you not love Pat Ford, right? He has a heart as big as all outdoors, and he is wholly committed to mentoring the next generation of diverse PR professionals. Finally, I'm coming to a close, my last great mentor, although I didn't realize it for much of my life, was my late father, Ichiro Tanaka. Now, I loved my dad, but he was a very difficult man. If my mom was pure warmth, love, and generosity, he was the polar opposite. I finally came to appreciate my dad and what I learned from him. He was relentlessly dependable, always. Relentlessly dependable, always. If he said he was going to do something, he did it. You could take it to the bank. My 2 siblings and I never worried about having a roof over our heads or food or clothing because of our relentlessly dependable dad. He was also the cheapest person on earth. He never bought anything on credit, and whenever we kids used to beg him, please, 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 can you buy us this? His answer was always no. But when we started PT and Company, and none of my 12 partners nor I had any money to invest in the venture, my dad took out a second mortgage on his home, which he had never done before, and loaned us $80,000 for operating capital. Thank you, Dad. You are my mentor and my hero. And thank you, PlankCenter, for allowing me to acknowledge and honor these consequential mentors in my life. Because were it not for them, I would not be standing here tonight. So thank you to all my mentors, past and present. Mahalo and aloha. Thank you.